good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. I'm Amber from Small Business Britain. Today, I'm really excited because we're talking all about sales and marketing. They're two massive topics. We've got the lovely Stacey Keogh with us today. Hi, Stacey.
Hello, Amber. How are
Hi,
you?
Stacey. Thank you so much for joining us. Stacey is the founder of Brand Lective. She runs an amazing marketing agency. She's been doing it for years and years, and you've run quite a few talks with us. So I'm really excited to hear what you've got to say today. Stacey's told me she's tried to condense the top lines that you all need to know about sales and marketing to really help boost your business. We know they're two massive topics, so we're going to try and streamline it for you so you can make the rest of the year very successful. We are recording today, so don't worry if you miss out on anything. We will send it to you directly to your inbox. I know Stacey's also got some really great resources at the end with some follow-up questions. So there'll be a QR code and you can scan that. Get involved in the chat, say hello, and let us know your business. I can see a few of you are already in there. We always love to hear from you. And as always, if you've got questions as we go, please put them into the Q&A section. I'll be keeping a beady eye on all your questions and ask Stacey them at the end for the last 10-15 minutes. And finally, I just want to say a big thank you to Lloyds Bank Academy for continuing to partner with us on these webinars. We couldn't do it without you. There's lots of more free training and resources over on the Lloyds Bank Academy website. We've also got some helpful resources for you at the end of the presentation as well. So you can continue your learning journey. That is enough from me, Stacey. I'm going to hand over to you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Amber. And a huge thank you to you and the Small Business Britain team and Lloyds Bank Academy for having me here today. I am very excited to be speaking to you about your sales and marketing guide. And as Amber alluded to, there is a lot to cover. So I am going to go through some top line metrics that I want us looking at with regards to putting together a sales plan and a marketing plan. And then we'll end with a Q&A. So please do jot down your questions because no doubt you will have some. And I really enjoy that part of these webinars. So very excited to kind of get to that point with you today. To give myself just a very quick introduction, for those of you that haven't attended one of my sessions before, I'm Stacey Keogh. I am the founder of Brand Lective, which is a digital marketing agency in London. And we are just going into our 13th year in business. I'm also an author. I have a book that is called Get Online, The 6 Simple Steps to Launching a Digital Marketing Strategy for the Non-Tech Savvy. And I also have a podcast by the same name, Get Online with Stacey Keogh, where I interview small businesses on their marketing strategies and also do a little bit of teaching there as well. But something that might be interesting and help to give you some context to today's session is actually before my life as a marketing agency owner, I was a hardcore salesperson. I love selling, I love sales, and actually one of the biggest motivations for me starting a digital agency was being a little bit of a frustrated salesperson and being frustrated with the quality of leads that were coming through to me. That made it really difficult for me to turn into a sale and actually sign contracts. So I have a real passion for making sure that our marketing plans and our sales plans sit alongside each other and work really well together. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Your sales and marketing guide. Sales and marketing should go hand in hand, but do they? It's really not that uncommon from what I see speaking to a lot of businesses that they actually end up treating both the same, which in my opinion can actually really hold back the growth of your business. So some businesses look at marketing and they do a lot across different marketing channels, think of lots of marketing initiatives to implement, and they just expect sales to roll on in. Not always the case. Others don't bother with marketing at all, and they focus on sales. They sell to their contacts, to people within their network. But maybe they get to a point where they start to wonder, why has business slowed down a little bit? Or why are things not going at the pace that I want them to go at? And perhaps it's that they've exhausted their network and haven't really built up a pipeline through their marketing material. So I'm really passionate about making these two things work together. And in this webinar, we will provide you with a really clear view of how to develop effective sales and marketing plans tailored to your goals and your very specific goals, because each of us run really individual businesses. Not one of us is the same, so none of us will have the same goals or even have the same metrics to even be looking at. So let's begin by thinking about what is the difference between a sales and marketing plan. The key thing I want to talk about here is, well, firstly, you'll notice something that happens throughout today where I'm going to use the term plan and strategy a little bit interchangeably. So apologies to any of the consultants on the line that get a little ickety about that. In the sake of keeping things really nice and simple, we're just going to use the term interchangeably. There is a difference. Strategy is much more about direction. Plan more is much more about the implementation. But to keep it nice and simple, I really want you guys to walk away today with a one-page sales plan and a one-page marketing plan that's really nice and easy for you to follow. So a marketing plan, what's the difference here? It sets the direction of how you will find and how you will actually engage with your prospective customers. So you can obviously promote your core messages, build interest in your brand. It's all about the direction that you're looking to take people in. Your sales plan, on the other hand, describes how you will actually sell to your customers, your target audience, and how you'll turn those buyers into repeat buyers and repeat purchases. And today I would like to start with the sales plan. Now, we all know marketing is the top of your pipeline and sales is the end, but I love to start with the end game. So I want to start by talking us through some sales metrics that we should be monitoring within our businesses and looking for opportunities to see whether those can be adjusted or enhanced or improved. And the reason that I love to start with sales before the marketing piece is once you know what is working for you in your business, we can decide to do more of that with our marketing. Or perhaps what happens when we start to look at our sales is that we can identify where there are some challenges or where there are some little bottlenecks. And at that point, we can use our marketing to help plug some of those holes. So I love to start with the sales plan. So let's jump straight in. And this alludes to the point I've just made, which is how can you know where to focus your digital marketing initiatives and budgets without understanding your sales pipeline? So super important. So there's 5 key metrics, as I mentioned, that we're going to run through. The first is conversion rates. The second is sales velocity. The third is customer acquisition cost. The fourth is your average deal size. And the fifth is your sales win rate. So I'll go into each of these. And what would be really a great exercise as we run through these is perhaps for you to jot down, if you know the answers to some of these areas, start to make notes for yourself. And this is the beginning of your sales plan. Okay, so let's begin with the conversion rate. So what is your current conversion rate is the question. How many inquiries do you get into your business versus how many convert into a paying customer? Now, for those of you that are not online businesses, that perhaps have a store or a shop, the way that you would think about this is slightly different. In terms of inquiries, that might look more like foot traffic. So it might be how many people are actually walking into my store, my cafe, my restaurant, how many people are walking in versus actually making a purchase. And for those of us that monitor this online through, if you're a digital business, this is not going to be your web traffic. This is going to be people who have made some kind of signal of interest to you. So that might be an actual inquiry on your website. Perhaps they've sent something through a contact form, or perhaps they've downloaded something, or opted into a newsletter, or they've taken some kind of action to sort of give you a suggestion that they're quite interested in you. Okay, so that's your sort of inquiries. And then of what percentage of those actually convert into a customer? That's a really important number to know. And I want to reiterate, every business will be different. Okay, a good comparison is if we compare, for example, a coffee shop on a high street. If I was to walk into a coffee shop, my rate of conversion is most likely going to be quite high because I'm entering the shop because I want to buy that coffee, and the coffee is a reasonable price. I already know what to expect. It's going to be I don't want to say easy sale, but we're going to know that conversion rate is going to be relatively high. Whereas if for a digital business, let's say, for example, myself, there might be a process where people are getting quotes from multiple agencies, etc. So there's always going to be sort of a drop-off point. And so every business is going to look really different. Please don't compare yourself to anybody else that's outside of your sector. Just really understand what your numbers are so that you know where to go from there. So let's say that you've worked out your conversion rate and you want to understand how this is something we do want to improve. How can we improve that conversion rate? So there's a few things that I want to suggest here. The first being, is there an opportunity for you to perhaps improve your pitch to get that conversion rate better? So could you be listening more, responding well to people's inquiries to make sure that makes them more likely to purchase? Are there any strategies you could consider to support the conversion rate, to support follow-up sequences, for example? So it could be offering discount codes if someone doesn't sign up immediately, or perhaps it's retargeting with some kind of ad online. Or look at your online reviews. Could you be obtaining more online reviews that actually help more people say yes and convert into a paying customer? So there's lots of different ways we can look to improve that. There might be ways that you can improve the offering, perhaps. So think about what your product or your service is and how could you boost your conversion rates by offering something such as a bonus or a free gift with purchase. Anything perhaps that you have already that you could just tack onto it that just makes that a much more appealing offer can really help to improve your conversion rates. And the other thing I want you thinking about with regards to conversion rates is just your communication strategy. So is it that you could go through some sales training yourself, or your team could go through some sales training? Are there some email automations you could have set up that help nurture people through to actually convert into buying? Could you have SMS reminders to buy that ticket before the date expires? Again, every business is going to be so different. So you just want to be thinking about the different channels you could be using. Could you use social media to help make that conversion rate more likely? Could you be featured in the media or have some kind of PR coverage? There are lots of different ways that you could look to improve that conversion rate. So understanding that metric, super, super important. The second one that we want to talk about here is the sales velocity. So what is the average length of time it takes a customer to make a purchase? So just think about that for a second and note that down for yourself. How long does it take a customer to actually make a purchase from you? So an instant purchase versus maybe months of research. The example here that I used earlier of the coffee shop is a good one, in the sense of, you know, if I'm going in there to get coffee, it might be a minute, right? I might be making a purchase within a minute of actually, so moving very rapidly through that sales pipeline. Whereas let's say we're buying a house, that could be 6 months to a year of what that pipeline looks like, right? So again, we can't compare ourselves to other businesses. It's important just to know, what is your current sales velocity? How quickly do people move through the pipeline? And are there opportunities to make that shorter or quicker? That's what we want to be thinking about. So things you could ask yourself, what is the most likely reason a customer would make an impulsive purchase decision? What are some of the bottlenecks in the sales process, and how can you identify what those actually are? What sort of steps might you take to get things a little bit more streamlined, the follow-up processes? I'm guilty of that myself at times in my business, where things don't happen as quickly as they should. You know, how can you accelerate the deal progression through that pipeline? Basically, like, is there anything that can be done? In some cases, there won't be. It'll just be how it is based on the purchase price. But it's just always good to understand what that number is, so you know what that looks like. And then, of course, what you could be doing is creating marketing materials to fill that hole and keep that nurturing happening to make that more likely to be a purchase. Okay, so we've got our conversion rate. We understand our sales velocity. Now we want to look at our customer acquisition cost. Okay, so these are just 5 things that we're trying to work out across our sales plan. So the third thing here with the customer acquisition cost, what does it currently cost you to acquire a new customer? So you want to be looking at your spending across any kind of marketing. So whether that's you've got a social media assistant, perhaps you're printing flyers, you've paid a designer to do a poster, perhaps you are traveling out of town 2 days a week to speak at an event. Like, there's always a cost associated with the acquisition of new business. So work out what that cost is for you. Once you understand what that cost is, you can decide whether that's makes sense or whether there's some work that needs to be done to either reduce that cost or even spend more to make sure that you get the customers that you want. The other piece here is thinking about the average customer lifetime value. So think about in the lifetime of someone doing business with you, what do they actually spend? So this is an important thing to work out because it actually can help to dictate what you should spend in the first place. So an example would be, I've got a client that we work with, for example, that knows that they sell sort of like individual sessions for customers to do business with them. And on average, customers buy 10 sessions. Okay, so they know that that a customer will buy 10 sessions, that will equal, let's say, £1,000 over 10 sessions. So then once they know the lifetime value of that customer, they can decide how much can be spent on acquiring the customer, right? So they decide what proportion of that. There's lots of other things that come into play here in terms of the cost of delivery, et cetera, et cetera. But if you can get really clear on what it currently costs you and what the current lifetime value will be, you can start to look at whether there are opportunities for you to do more of that, to either increase your spend to get more or reduce your spend in different ways to get a better result. So working out your customer acquisition cost. Our fourth point here in our sales plan is going to be thinking about the average deal size. Okay, so basically that's just a fancy way of saying, what do people spend the first time they buy something from you? So what is the average first purchase value? So can you think about, like, when they make that first purchase, is there an opportunity to upsell in some way? Is there some kind of add-on where that deal size could get a little bit bigger? Or is there an approach that could be taken to tailor your offering to maximize the deal size? Just looking at if there are opportunities that people can pay on a payment scheme, or there's lots of different ways that you could potentially get people spending a little bit more the first time, but finding ways that help to meet their requirements by doing it over a period of time, perhaps. So just understanding what is your average deal size. And again, as you can see, once you work your way backwards here, if you understand your average deal size, you understand at the first point of sale, you realize how much they're going to spend with you over the lifetime of doing business with you. You know how quickly you can get a customer, and you know how well you do convert customers. You can really start to figure out what you can be spending on marketing or not, So these are really important metrics to understand about your sales plan. So our fifth one here is our sales win rate. Okay, so this is about understanding who are your competitors and are you losing any business to them? So that's an important thing to be thinking about. Okay, so think about the question you're asking yourself, I suppose, is how can you sort of assess what your competitiveness is in your market in order to improve your sales rate? And is there a way to sort of really cement your market position to make sure that you can improve that sales rate? Again, I'll go back to the coffee shop example. If I'm thinking at my local high street, there are three coffee shops, one of which is inside the station, right? So it's kind of like a get your coffee and go jump on the train. And then there are two sort of cafes that sell coffee that you can walk past on your way to the train station. They all offer something different, right? If I'm in the station, it's literally grab and go. They don't even have seating. It's not possible for me to sit down and have any other kind of experience there. It's just quick, rapid. That is their USP, and people go there for that reason. Whereas there are two lovely cafes, both of which are really, really different and unique and have different food offerings and decor, and it's a different vibe in each one of them. So I think they've done a very brilliant job of identifying who they are and making themselves stand out and be separate from each other when they're still offering the same thing. So it's not about necessarily that you're going to grab all the business from your competitors, but just understanding where you sit among your competitors, and if there are any opportunities for you to make your offer a lot clearer so that it just becomes a little bit easier for people to say yes and buy from you. So these are the 5 areas, okay, across our sales plan that we want to think about. So once you've understood these 5 items, then we can kind of move on to developing our marketing plan and how marketing can support these sales functions, all right? So I want to recap here a little bit. Measure your conversion rate to gauge the effectiveness of turning leads into customers. Monitor your sales velocity to ensure deals move swiftly through that pipeline. Think about the cost, your customer acquisition costs, and compare it to the lifetime value. And think about whether your resources need to be reallocated. And then also think about the deal size and how much people generally are spending with you at that first point of contact. And then also your sales win rate. So are there any tactics or ways that you could strengthen your market competitiveness? And when you have this data in front of you, you can see how you can start to use this to shape your marketing plan. So the question is what you're doing working? And if so, all you need to do is scale it up. Or are there some strategic moves you can make before you invest in marketing to make sure that you're going to get the best return? Okay. At the end of this webinar, as Amber had mentioned, I do have a little free download that you can grab, which is just a one-pager where you can answer the questions to these 5 areas, and it will help you extract the information from within your business or from your team. So we've understood our sales plan and sort of the areas that we need to understand and areas that potentially need to be improved. So now we can focus across onto marketing and what sort of marketing materials, marketing strategies, marketing tactics we can implement in order to improve performance for our business. So there are 6 C's of marketing that I want to walk us through. These are sort of something we've developed inside our agency. It's actually the premise of my book, which covers off these 6 steps, these 6 C's. And it really can work as a really lovely guide to make sure that you've thought about all the little holes that sort of happen throughout our marketing plans. So the first is connect, and I'm going to get into a bit more of the detail on this. The second is create, captivate, capture, converse, convert. Okay, so let's talk about each of these 6 parts of our marketing plan. So the first step is connect. And this is all about the way that your brand forms a connection to your ideal audience. So it's defining who you are as a business. So what's your brand identity, what you do, how you do it. It's all about what you offer, okay? The second part of connection is all about who your customers are. So who is your ideal dream customer, and what do they want? What do they need? What sort of challenges do they face? What pain points do they experience? And once you identify those things, it helps to drive your marketing strategy because you're focused in and you truly, truly know who you are and you truly know who your customer is. So there's a couple of questions here on my slides that you can see. What does your business stand for? So that's a question to ask yourself. You know, what do you stand for? Why do you do what you do? You then want to be thinking, what do you do? And I'm sure you know the answer to that, but I want you to put it down in a really simple way, a really simple explanation. You guys have probably all heard about the explain what you do to a 5-year-old. Has anyone gone through one of those exercises before? Where sometimes for us, we're so in our business, it becomes a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. And we use fancy words and it confuses people and everything just gets a little bit lost. So when I ask the question, what do you do? Think about how you might explain that to a 5-year-old and literally write that down. And just get really, really simple with it and make sure that that exists somewhere on your website and through some of the messaging that you're sharing. And who are your ideal prospects? Who are your customers? Really build out a customer profile or a customer avatar to establish who they are, and so that you know exactly who you're talking to in your marketing materials. What are your customers' pain points, right? What are the things that they're struggling with? If you can write out a list of sort of 5 to 10 different things that are really like, you know, people are motivated by pain. So if you can really understand what a negative is for them or what a struggle is for them, you're better positioned to put your own business in as the solution. And then what is it that you actually offer that solves that problem for those customers? So be really, really clear on who you are as a business, what you offer, and really, really clear on who your customer is and what they need from you. And that's the connect piece, okay? So we figure out how we're going to connect with our audience. Once we know who we're going to connect with, we move on to the second step, which is to create content assets or marketing materials. So you want to be thinking about what kind of marketing materials do I already have? So hopefully most of you will have a website. You possibly also have some social media channels. Maybe you have an actual storefront or shop. Think about the different ways that people can find your business, basically. So websites, blogs, videos, do you make appearances on podcasts? Do you have little quizzes people can participate in? Do you have free downloads available? Do you have a really beautiful in-store experience that people go through? Do you have signage? Are there flyers? Do you do billboards? Make a list of the things that you already have, okay? And then which pieces do you think that might be missing from this puzzle? So thinking back to your customer in the connect stage of who they are and what they need and what their challenges are, have you produced content or marketing materials that address those challenges or those problems? So some questions you might ask yourself. Does your website say in plain English what you do? As soon as they land on the website, is that clear? Do you have any video clips or blogs that address common pain points for your customers and how you can solve those challenges? And just remember to make it more about them than about yourself. So yes, you've got the solution, but they want to see that you really understand them and you really get them and you understand, like, this is why you're motivated to do what you do. Do you think if you were to ask your community what your thing is, will they know the answer to that question? Like, do they know what you do? Whether that's locally or whether that's your online community, just are people super clear and can they easily talk about you? So I would think about plugging some holes here with your marketing materials. I always like to say that I think you need multiple things, right? So I always talk about needing video content, needing some kind of audio, like appearing on other people's podcasts or having your own podcast, having blogs, having websites, being featured in the media. Like, you do need all of these things, okay? And the reason I say that is every person likes to digest information in different ways. And ultimately we're selling to people, right? That's what we want to be doing, is having people purchase from us. Whether you're B2B or B2C, by the way, I feel like people get hung up on this where it's like a B2B thing. I'm like, it's still a person. You're still getting a person to actually say yes and sign a contract. So think about the people and how do you humanize this a little bit more, and how do you help give them all the information they need, like almost so much information that they're just like, no brainer, you are the business for me. I know for myself, I like to share this example of like just me being one person, the way that I consume content is different depending on the time of day. So I have a 15-minute train ride into our co-working space from my house, right? So I have a 5-minute walk, 15-minute train, a 5-minute walk. That is not long enough for me to get into a book, for example. I'm not going to do that on that journey before I'm on the train. I'm off the train. Like, I can't get into it. However, a podcast works well for me because I can listen from the 5 minutes, the 15 minutes, the 5-minute walk on the other side. So that's how I digest things when I'm on the move, in the mornings. However, in the evenings, I'll quite happily sit there and read a book for that week and really dig into that content from that person's book. Something I will do perhaps on the train is read a blog post on my phone, because again, that's nice and quick and easy. So I can do that. In the evenings, if I'm feeling a little bit lazier, maybe I'll watch video instead of reading books. So I'm just one person, but the way that I consume information about a brand that I like or someone that I'm interested in is going to be different depending on where I'm at in my day. So please don't fall into the trap of just doing one thing. Make sure that you have content available in all forms, make it accessible for all types of people to be able to consume it and enjoy it, okay? So we're creating all these assets that are going to help to push people slightly further down our pipeline and towards doing a sale, right? So we've created these content assets and marketing materials. That's great. Now we need to figure out how to get them in front of people. So we need to captivate their attention. Okay, so this is our third C, how to captivate their attention. In the digital space, this is usually ads, unfortunately. It's usually using paid search, so Google ads or social ads to get in front and put in front of people the material that you want them to see. It doesn't always have to be. It can be done organically. Obviously, SEO works beautifully. It is a long game. You know, we're with clients like this on a very long-term strategy. That is the direction we would push them. But paid media generally is like, if you need that result, that's going to be where you get the result. So yeah, where are you visible is the question here. Your SEO, think about your paid media. Are you at events where people can see you? Do you have a storefront, or are you on the high street? Like, think about how you're captivating someone's attention. How do they know that you exist? Because creating content and creating material is great. That's one thing. But how do you actually get it in front of them is the question here. People always ask me the question when we get to this point around organic socials. And I post this out on my social media. I love organic social media. It's probably one of our most popular services within our agency. We very much use that as part of the fifth C, which is converse and nurturing. Organic is a tricky channel to grow without spending money on ads. So it's a beautiful way to continue to keep in touch with people and to talk about things for people that already know you. But in terms of getting in front of people for the first time, it's not impossible, but it is trickier. Okay, so that's just something to consider at this stage. Think about what you are really doing to captivate people's attention so they know that you exist. The fourth step is capture. So now that we've put that ad or that piece of content at an event in front of somebody, how do we then capture their details? So this is where you want to think about like your lead forms, your lead pages, maybe app downloads, whatever it is. You know, when you're buying something in a shop and people put your email into the till because they're capturing your detail, right? So it's thinking about how you're capturing their information. And again, every pipeline is going to look a bit different. Okay, I know that I've said this repeatedly on this webinar, but there are some businesses that are more instantaneous, right? So if we go back to the coffee shop example, you know, I am going to just buy as soon as I walk into the shop. It's not something that has to be nurtured over a long period of time. Yes, it probably has to be an amazing experience for me to continue coming back to make that a repeat purchase, but the actual, you know, you don't need the contact details necessarily to keep selling to them, is what I'm trying to say. So everyone's pipelines will look slightly different. However, if you are a B2B business or you're a business that sells something of a fairly high purchase value, this is very much a process that people need to go through in order for them to say yes to you. So capturing their details. Okay, so this is, you've got their details now, and now you can actually work on the relationship. So this takes us on to the fifth step. Yes, fifth step, which is converse. And this is all about nurturing. Okay, so this is where like we've got your details. We're not like pitch, aggressive selling. This is nurturing and really building relationships with our audience. So this can look like your email marketing and newsletters, keeping people up to date with things that are happening, sharing things that are really helpful to them. Thinking about your organic social media, this is an amazing way to converse and nurture your audience, get people to be really familiar with who they are. So again, they just really like you. Once they like you, they trust you, they're going to make purchases from you. So that's a really beautiful way to do that. In-store experiences is another way of doing that, of just having, you know, some kind of interaction and really building a relationship, I think is so important. I'll share a little story on this actually, which kind of goes back to captivate and ties in here to the converse. So 2 weeks ago, I was down on my local high street. So I just picked up some dry cleaning and then crossed the road because there's a relatively new restaurant that I hadn't been to yet. It's a vegan restaurant and I heard really great things about it, but we haven't been there yet. So I walked up to the window and I was trying to look at the menu, and they were closed. It was during the day and they were only open in the evenings. So it was closed and I was looking at the menu, and a guy came running out of the shop and poked his head out and was like, "Oh, hello." And I was like, "Oh, hi, sorry, just looking at your menu." And he's like, "Oh, have you been here before?" And I was like, "No, I haven't." I said, "Oh, I'm really local and I've heard amazing things about the restaurant, but we haven't actually managed to get here yet." And he was like, "Wait here just 1 second." And ran back into the shop and then came back out again, and he handed me a little card. And I looked at it and he said, "I really like you to come and have a free meal here. So a free meal for two." He's like, "Please don't bring your wallet. Please just come, have dinner, have a really amazing evening and just experience it, because, you know, we really love local people to support us." And I was like, oh my God, what an amazing thing to do. And I just thought it was such a great way of like getting someone in the door. Obviously, you know, the food has to be good for me to come back and repurchase and to make that a local thing. But just that one interaction with him, I've told every neighbor on my street about that. I asked them if they've gone. So again, it's just that word of mouth effect of just having that really amazing sort of like, I guess, in-store experience, or the way he captivated my attention, because he's given me something which is obviously of extremely high value. It's a very, very generous offer. Not all of us in businesses are going to be able to do that, but I thought it was an amazing way of really getting local community to say amazing things about you. As I mentioned, I've told every neighbor on my street. So, you know, be thinking about for your own business, you know, how can you be making that really great first impression, and really building a relationship and nurturing people through, to make them a loyal customer, right? So converse. The sixth point here is convert. Okay, so this is where we do the sale. Yes, amazing. And we go into our sales pipeline that we talked about earlier. So following the nurturing of your audience, we can now really push for that sale and push for that conversion. So in order to do that, you want to be thinking about having good systems in place to be able to make that happen for you. So digital tools, you want to be thinking about whether it's like your social media or your email analytics. You want to be thinking about having GA4 installed across your website so you can understand the way that people are interacting with your website. You want to have the basics in place, like a really good CRM system and lead management software, so that you can track, you know, all of those metrics we were talking about earlier. So your customer acquisition rates and the sales velocity. Your systems are going to help you understand that, so you don't have to manually try and figure it out. And it's really important to, you know, be able to revisit and re-nurture and go back and re-pitch clients that maybe you didn't sell to in the first place, but you have the opportunity to do so at a later date. So really thinking about like ways of converting, and tools that you can be using to help support you do that. And at this point, step 6, which is convert, is kind of where we go straight into that sales pipeline that we just talked about earlier. So thinking about the pitch and thinking about how we can get that process working really, really well. I just saw a little question pop up quickly there, which is, what is GA4? So that's Google Analytics. So this GA4 has been out since, is it July last year? Was it the year before? I think it was last year. Universal Analytics has been phased out and GA4 is the new. So it's the way that it's a little pixel that you install on your website, and Google can track give you information about what's happening across your website. So it's just an important thing to do to see how people are engaging with the site, so that you can make optimizations to your web pages, landing pages, or, you know, reposition things to make it a lot easier. So yes, so that's the 6th point, which is convert. So really to kind of recap through, I guess, these areas, and we're shortly going to kind of go into some Q&A, because I'd really love the opportunity to help you in your specific businesses. And if you do have very questions about what's happening for you in your business that I can help you with, please pop them into chat, and Amber will come back on in just a moment. But just to kind of recap these 6 C's of marketing. So you want to go back and think about that connection, the way that you're going to connect to your audience. So who you are, what you do, and then who your customers are and what they need. Think about the marketing materials you need to create in that second step. So what sort of content assets are needed? Are you thinking about all the different ways people like to consume? And do you have all of those available? The third step is captivate. So how are you actually getting out in front of people? Is it that you're speaking at an event? Is it that you're running ads? Think about how you're actually getting in front of people. How you're capturing their details is step 4. How are you getting them into the pipeline? You know, is there good landing pages, gated content, you know, forms that people are completing? How are you getting their details? And then you're nurturing. So step 5, which is converse. So how are you building that relationship so that people don't think about going anywhere else when they're at that ready to purchase stage? And then the 6th point, which is obviously the conversion. So asking for the sale, actually, that's a point I probably should have made, which is, please don't just assume that people are gonna just remember to come back to you. Like, you do have to ask for the sale. People can get a little nervous about this. I personally, I love selling. I think it's when you're really comfortable and confident with what your product is and what your service is, and you truly know it can help. Like when you absolutely know that this could change this person's life, or this could really propel this business forward, whatever your offering is, it's not hard to sell because it's not a hard pitch. It's just like, I've really listened and learned, and this is the challenge that you have, customer A. And here's how I see that shifting and changing if you were to buy this service and product. So if you can kind of get into that mindset of it, really can be something amazing for them. You don't have to be scared of asking for the sale. Get those contracts signed, people. So for people that want a little bit more, because I realize we have covered off quite a lot in quite a short period of time, but I really want enough time to go through Q&A. So there's a couple of things here. The first is the first 5 metrics that we went through for the sales. There is a free guide on our website that you are very welcome to have if you use the QR code on the left. Yes, you do go into our newsletter. So full disclosure there, we send one a month. Okay, so and one a month is generally talking about updates, social media updates, new trends, fun sort of like advertising campaigns. So it's hopefully not too much to endure, but that is a free download for you. As I mentioned, for the 6 C's of marketing, they are outlined in my book. You are able to buy copies on Amazon if you would like. However, I was chatting to Amber before we started the call, and I had offered to give away 3 free copies of the book. So if you feel like that would be useful for you and something that you would like, I recommend that you pop me a DM on LinkedIn telling me that you would like it. And the first 3 people that I receive a message from, I will ask for a few details, and I'll ship you out a free copy of the book to help you with your marketing pipeline. So let's pause there for a second and move into a Q&A, because I think where this becomes really powerful is when we can really address very specific examples. So thank you, Amber, very much for coming back onto the screen there. I would love to know what questions we have and how we can help.
Sure, we've got lots coming in. I'm sure your LinkedIn's going to be going crazy now for that free book. So first of all, thank you so much, Stacey. That was really, really informative. I'm going to dive straight into the questions because we have got a lot. We've got about 15 minutes left of the session.
Okay.
So lots of questions if it's being recorded. Yes, it's being recorded, and it will be sent to you later on in the week, so you can always catch up there. Cool. Okay, so Emily has said, do you think it's essential to pay money on Instagram in order to grow it, or do you mean paying for followers?
Oh, yeah, so I mean advertising. So I would never pay for followers. They're not real. So it's very much a vanity metric when you're purchasing from companies that sell followers. The only way that is done legitimately is if you're actually buying an account, but that means obviously taking over that entire account. There's very few businesses that works for. I feel like it's more of an influencer thing, but yeah, I would definitely be avoiding buying followers. It's a quick, sure way to get yourself banned on some of those networks.
I think people are wise to it as well. They can see if you've got those followers, not many likes.
Exactly. And well, that's exactly it. And I think I've actually seen examples of this in the past for businesses that have come in to work with us. And if you scroll through their following, you can, I've seen one actually called like @fakefollower237. I'm like, I mean, it's it's pretty obvious when that happens. So yeah, I would not be buying followers, but no, when I talk about Captivate, I would be talking about spending money on ads. Yeah.
Okay,
and just
cool.
make sure it's not about spending a lot. It's about if the messaging is right and the offer is clear, you can really, streamline things to make it work for you. It's more about making sure that you're thinking about, you've created all this amazing marketing material or content. How are you actually getting people to look at it? That's the question when it comes to Captivate.
Speaking of Instagram adverts, do you think they're worthwhile? Do you think they're worth the money that people put behind them?
I think, it absolutely depends on the business. So for me, any kind of paid advertising like that can be super successful. If the offer is really clear, that's the key point. So for businesses that, so often you'll see this discussion between product-based businesses versus service-based businesses and performance across some of these paid media channels. And quite often the reason that a lot of product businesses outperform service is because a product is a product and most people understand what it is. And so for me, what that is, it's clarity of what you're purchasing, right? So if it's very clear what you're buying, it absolutely works. If there's any sort of, if it's untangible and people find the thing hard to understand, you will spend a lot of money on the click and not actually get the conversion. So it's all about just making sure that there's clarity around what the offer is and the benefits, so that people can make an informed decision. And again, just one more thing on that would just be around price point. So there's no set price point in terms of what people will and won't buy on Instagram. I mean, people look at cars on Instagram before they go and buy them, so they're spending tens of thousands of pounds, right? But what you want to be thinking here is when you go back to those sales metrics and you work out like, yeah, what is the value of that customer that eventually purchases from you, dictates how much you're able to actually spend on the ad. And once you're clear on those numbers, everything else becomes a little bit easier to work out. And you just want to make sure you've got all of your marketing materials the whole way through the pipeline so that people are being nurtured, because they don't always buy the first time they click on that ad.
Yeah.
We've all been there on Instagram, right? We've clicked on things 10 times and then you're like, fine, I'll buy the shirt that I've been looking at. Like I've done that a million times. So it's not always the first point. So you've got to think about like how you're nurturing and how you're staying front of mind.
Yeah, it's that classic 10 points of contact before someone's going to buy from you.
Exactly.
The sales funnel. Lots of questions about your book and the link to the free download. Would you mind just going back one slide so people can scan that QR code if they'd like it?
There you go.
Thank you. Okay, next question from Katie. I like this one. She says, I'm at the very start of my business. Obviously, there's lots to do. What's the one piece of advice in order to start off on the right foot?
I think it's that first part of the marketing pipeline that we talked about, just that connection piece, like being super clear on like who you are, what you do, how you do it, and exactly who you're trying to target. And that part is the best investment of your time and resource, because the clearer you are, the better anything you produce after that is going to be. Your product is going to be better. Any kind of marketing that you do is going to be better. Without doing the work on that piece, we're just sort of like shots in the dark, and it's a bit like we try a bit of everything and nothing really sticks, and then you don't know what worked and what didn't work. And so I think, yeah, that's the first point, is just getting super clear on what you do and how you do. And I think, you know, for small businesses, it's not always about spending a lot of money. You don't have to spend a lot. We've all started out in business and not had money to spend on these sorts of things. So it's just being smart, I guess, around the bits that are going to get you the biggest return. So actually, Amber, you and I were at an event yesterday, and I was speaking to a small business where he was saying, you know, do we do a website or do we just do socials? I said to him, I still think a website is a good investment. It doesn't have to be fancy. I think it just needs to be really clear. It can be a small website, but it just has to be very clear on what you do and how you do it. Yes, you're going to get a bigger following across social media. But I still think people still want to see a website to help feel like you're an established business and you're not sort of going to disappear on them a little bit. There's something about a website that makes people feel more trusting in your business. Like I would say,
and it's one of those things, it's you actually own it. You don't own the social media site. So if it goes down, all your followers, everything's gone. But at least with a website or newsletter list, you actually own it and you can.
Excellent point. Yes, we've seen many people over the years that for no reason and no way to figure out why they've been kicked off.
Yeah, it's really sad to see. We get messages all the time, especially with things like Facebook and Instagram. There's not much you can do about it, really.
No, exactly right. Yep. So it's really smart advice.
Cool. Okay. Well, speaking of marketing content and social media, someone's asked, what is the most powerful way of marketing and type of marketing content? Is it adverts, testimonials, videos? Do people need to see more of me rather than just the business?
So many depends in there, which I hate saying. It depends. So it's a little bit of everything. I want to see all sorts of content assets, right? So yes, I want video. Yes, I want images. I want things that I can scroll through. I want downloads. I want a bit of everything. So that's how you're going to get the attention, and that's how you're going to get more coverage from the algorithms, by sharing, using the tools that they give you, right? So LinkedIn, for example, has you know, documents that you can upload that you can kind of scroll through. They allow native publishing of video. You can publish your own articles or newsletters on LinkedIn. So you can tell what the algorithms lean into by looking at their own tools. Instagram's a little bit the same, like use stories, you know, use reels, use carousels, like use everything that they're trying to get you to use. If you use that, you're going to get the best organic view across your channels. So that's probably how you get the best result in terms of content types. In terms of what you should be posting, again, every business is going to be really unique and independent, but again, it's just a bit of a mix. We know what it's, think about your own experience online. Like nobody wants to be sold to all the time. But you do have to ask for a sale occasionally, right? We need to ask for that so that people know that you actually do sell something. So it's a nice mix of like, yes, a testimonial, yes, talking about a product or a service, but talking about behind the scenes of like things that you're working on or ideas that you have, or like, here's me making this thing, or here's me planning this event that I'm doing. And again, the question around, should it be more of you as the business owner, or should it always be the product or the service? Again, it very much depends on the type of business that you have, but I think in most cases with smaller businesses, people really love that connection to the founder. So you will find that anything that you share of your face will most likely outperform other pieces of material. So again, yeah, it's just getting more comfortable with that. It's a great place to start.
Amazing, thank you. We've got a specific business question here. So Anna from Baby O says, I sell organic baby clothes. My target customers are parents with sensitive skin babies and have tight budgets. What is the best ad platform for me? I'm struggling to get customers.
Okay. So I think this goes back to the connection piece that we talked about, the first part of marketing, which is really speaking to some of your existing customers and getting a really clear understanding of who they are. So like I would literally call them and say, hey, you purchased this thing from me. I really appreciated that. And I was wondering if I just ask you a few questions, like I'm looking to improve my marketing. Like honestly, people are so willing to help you. So I think if you're brave enough to do that, I would. And I would just be asking in things like, you know, how frequently are you purchasing clothes for your baby? Or, you know, what are the biggest challenges that you've faced when trying to come up with the right thing to buy for your baby? What you know, what channels do you use on social? Are there social media channels that you use, or do you go into mums online forums to get advice? Like just ask them sort of like where they're going for information, because it'll sometimes surprise you that they might be like, oh, it's Mumsnet and this is what I'm doing, or they might be like, oh, there's a Facebook community in my little village that we're all in, or there'll be things that they will tell you that you haven't thought about in terms of where they're getting insight and information. And I think ultimately, with that sort of brand, what you want to be doing is you could, for example, be sharing a lot of helpful advice that's maybe free for them to do to build that trust and that love for your brand. So if it's babies with sensitive skin, maybe you're sharing some, I don't know, natural remedies or something for how to wash the clothing, and not just your clothing, but anyone's clothing, right? So I think the more useful you can be and the more educational you can be to help solve some of those worries or those concerns that those mums have or those dads have, they're just going to fall in love with you. They're just going to be like, oh my God, I read this and I tried this and this worked. And they're going to tell all their mum friends. And that's how you're going to build that love and that relationship. And then even if your products are on the pricier end because they're beautifully, you know, produced and organic and all of that, you'll find that they'll still have this passion. They'll tell people about it, and you'll get sales through that sort of method, or they'll put it on a list when the baby's birthday comes around and all the family members will buy the product. So it's just be the person that they just love and they're obsessed. They're almost like, I'm just going to buy this one really special piece every quarter for my baby or whatever, you know. So I think that's the best way to go about it.
Amazing, thank you. I've got a few more questions coming in. Just before we get to those, would you mind flipping forward to the Lloyds Bank Academy slides? Just we've got a few really great free resources for you, as you can see on the slide here, to just help with your learning post this webinar. So you've got how to identify your USP and creating your marketing strategy. So that's all on the Lloyds Bank Academy website. And if we just go to the last one, I know we've got a QR code. If you have the time, please do just scan that. Let us know your thoughts on today's session. It just helps us with our future ones as well. Okay, cool. So next question. What is the best way to build a community? I have a newsletter list and some followers across social media, but I want to create more of a community and that feel attached to my brand, as we're all like-minded customers. How can I do this?
I would ask them.
Okay.
I would ask the customers, because I think sometimes we're like, oh, you know, I love being in a WhatsApp group, so I should put, give people the opportunity to be in a WhatsApp group, and then they're all like, I hate WhatsApp. Or
Yeah.
we're like, oh, let's build this Facebook community, and then no one really joins or no one participates. And as it turns out, they just never go on Facebook anymore. So I think you just have to ask. I know that seems really simple and maybe obvious or not obvious, but you just have to ask people to say, well, do you want a community? I would love a community, and this is what I'm hoping having a community will offer us all. Would you want to participate in something like this, or is this just not really what you want? So I think it's just understanding if that's what your customers are looking for, and then ask them if what method they prefer that to be in. Is it
Yeah.
a
I
Slack
think it
channel?
sounds so simple as well, asking your customers. And we hear a lot from businesses. They think, well, I should already know this. I shouldn't be reaching out to my customers and asking for their advice on my business. But it's the
Yeah.
best way to research. And
Yeah.
as you mentioned earlier, people love to help you. And I think they feel really
Yes.
valued that you value what they're going to say and you're going to make changes based on their opinions.
Yes.
So yeah, I absolutely love that one. It's one of my favorite top tips from these marketing sessions we do.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because I think people love, honestly, think about a time when someone has asked you for help or support or asked a question, and you've been able to give them some direction or some advice. Like, you feel great. Like, you never would not feel great. So you don't feel that you can't ask questions. It's not about not knowing. It's just about making sure you're up to date. Because I have in my mind, I've run my business for nearly 13 years. I feel like I know like where my customers are and what they do. However, I get a whole bunch of new business in, and then they tell me something different, and I'm like, oh, okay. So I need to, people are evolving, the way people use things are evolving. So it's not a reflection of what you know or don't know. It's about the evolution of the way people are engaging with things.
Amazing. Cool. Lots of questions came through in the last 5 minutes. So we're going to try and run through them as quick as we can.
Okay.
Joanne has said, what would your advice be for the best strategy in a competitive market such as jewelry? My website sales have dropped off over the last year. I do feel like I have a strong USP as my jewelry has found milk sea glass pieces, but I'm struggling to increase sales.
So I think it maybe could be a combination of showing more sort of behind the scenes, like the story element of the business. So that does sound really interesting and unique. So just getting comfortable with that type of content, so people get obsessed with the process. Because once people love how you do it and why you do it, they're more likely to become customers. I guess fortunately, sometimes ad strong is the way forward. I know I hate even saying that myself as a marketer, but sometimes that is the way that you just cut through the competition. Obviously, the long game, I would play with SEO for sure. And just think about doing your keyword research to understand, what are people looking for? What is the volume of people doing the search? And do I want to target that? And if so, great. And really focus in on a couple of really niche keywords that are going to get you the type of traffic to your website that you want. And then also same with reviews. I would just look at getting a ton of reviews that specifically use the keywords that you want to rank for. So getting the type of that glass, in the reviews, just make sure like it's very, very specific. That's the best way to make some moves.
Amazing, thank you. Okay, I think we've got time for one more question. So the last one is, I'm considering employing someone to run my social media pages, but I'm worried it won't look authentic. I don't always have time to post myself, and when I do, it's not polished, but I do get good engagement and more sales. What would your advice be here, Stacey?
Yeah, I think consistency is really important. When you outsource, I have this conversation with clients all the time, right? When the client outsources to us, no, it's never going to be 100% you. Never. As much as I would love to say that it would be, it's not. Our goal is always to get like 90-95% of the way to representing you in the right way by utilizing the information you share with us, or that we can get from your website, and not just us. Sorry, this is for anybody that you were looking to hire. I think you can get to 90-95% of the way, but it's never going to be 100%. So you either need to be willing to give up that control or not. That's the answer to that question. But yeah, obviously there's a lot of value they could bring you if they're the right person.
Yeah, of course. And I guess it's if you sit down with them and do a bit of a strategy and the types of things you want to post,
Yeah, and think about the things that they could be bringing to you that you haven't thought
Yeah.
of yet, I suppose, is the other side of the coin.
Yes, definitely. Cool, Stacey. We have come to the end of the hour now. I want to say a massive thank you for joining us. I've seen you 2 days in a row now, so
I
I'm very,
know.
very happy. And thank you everyone for joining and submitting your questions. As I just shown on the screen, there are some more free webinars with Lloyds Bank over on their website. So if you want some more free help and advice, you don't have to be a customer, do take advantage of that. Of course, we will be back with more lovely webinars like today. So many hearts and party claps coming up. I'm going to let you get on with the rest of your day. We'll send you the recording and any of the follow-up resources. So you'll have that in your inbox this week. And we'll see you very soon.
Thank you.